So how do you know if a sacrifice in business was worth it to you or not, right? Some people will think, you know what, well, I made $1 million, so it was worth it. Or I made $100,000, or I made $500,000, but at what price? And that's the question that you have to ask yourself. And so I think about examples that I've had in my life where I saw people who made a ton of freaking money. If you ask them, I'm sure they would say, in some cases, it wasn't worth it, right? And what do I mean by that? So I give you an example of myself. You know, when I was building up the business in our payments business, called electronic commerce at the time, I had a business partner who I had the opportunity to work with to build that business. And I can recall, at first we had the business in, I want to say Texas, right? And he actually relocated from California to Texas. And it didn't work out too well there, but hey, he kind of did some things there and kind of hung out, and then eventually relocated back to California. And then we began to build the business back up in California. But now, since he moved to Texas, I had to travel back and forth. That was kind of like part of the agreement, is I would travel back and forth to California from Florida. And so every single week I would fly out to California. To fly to California, it feels like you get there in 3 or 4 hours, right? It's really actually about 4.5 hours. But when you come back, you like lose a whole day because of the time difference. So imagine I was doing that every single week, probably for about 2, 3, 4 years. And then it became every other week, and then twice a month or something like that. Maybe once a month. Then we finally built the business up to a point where we got out of that dark period, that whole unknown period where you just grinding, hoping that it works. We finally got to a period where we begin to see the light. Here's the thing, right? Nothing lasts forever. Dark times don't last forever, and neither do the good times last forever. And you know, good and bad are all relative, but when you're working, busting your butt, you're doing sales, you're doing marketing, you're doing tech, you're doing customer service, you're doing a little bit of operations, and you're not making any money, and you're leaving your family behind, those aren't necessarily good times. It may feel like it at the time that, you know what, I'm busy, you know, like all this busy work, but it's not good times. And here's why. You may be successful and may get that big nest egg, that big payday at the end of it, then you can be with your family and it's all worth it, but that doesn't always happen. And in hindsight, whether I was successful afterwards or not, the amount of time that I lost, those precious moments that you can never, ever freaking get back with your family are gone forever. No amount of money, I don't care if you have $1 gazillion, right? No amount of money will ever bring that back to you. You've lost those times with your children. You've lost those special moments with your wife. You've even lost the time to help grow and nurture yourself as a human being, as a person. Those quiet moments where you're just sitting down thinking, just being still, or those moments where you're just reading and you're learning and you're studying, or those moments you get to walk out on the park and boom, you get that aha idea, right? Or the moment you miss when you get to hold your wife's hand and just walk, or just sit down and watch TV together. I don't care what the freak it is, or be with your children. You miss all these moments, and then now you sacrificed it for a fleeting moment of success, and you didn't even get the bag, the money at the end of the day. Was it worth it? Absolutely freaking not, right? It was not worth it because the payoff, it wasn't there, right? And so you have to always be willing to understand that when you're in entrepreneurship, you will have those dark moments where you don't know what's going on. Hopefully what you can do is, I won't use the word balance, but hopefully you will do everything that you can to focus in on that business, but at the same time, don't forget what's extremely valuable, because let's say you grind out, and a lot of us grind out year after year after year. Before you know it, 1 year becomes 2 years, 2 years become 5 years. I remember talking to a family member of mine, and this family member wanted to be a rapper, right? That's what they wanted to do. And I was like, you sure? I've never heard you rap before. Oh yeah, I've always been rapping. I was like, okay, right? And so I'll be honest, becoming a rapper, especially for a Black American male, just is like super popular. It's like trending. I don't know what it is, but you know, it just seemed like so many wanted to be a rapper, right? And so he wanted to be a rapper. I said, okay, fine. And then he began working with us, and I'm like, listen, man, you know, a year has gone by. First of all, it was sports, and then that drifted away, right? And then he said, I never really wanted to do that. Then it became rapping. I said, well, okay, I've been knowing you, you know, probably about 20-some years, and I never heard you really rapping, but okay, fine. So now you want to be a rapper at 20 or 21. Okay, cool, no problem. Big deal, you got a long life ahead of you. 2 years goes by, 3 years go by. I'm like, dude, why don't you just dig in while you're here, take these business skills, and then you can apply it to your music or whatever else you want to do. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. 3 years goes by, 4 years go by, 5 years go by, right? I'm like, dude, you gotta go harder. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because not because to say that this person isn't serious or they're not successful. It has nothing to do with it. But was the sacrifice worth it? Was it worth his 5 years to focus, to just stay at a company rather than to go all in on his dream? Right? To go all in on his craft or something that he was really passionate about. And you have to think about that same thing when it comes to what's most precious to you. Maybe it's becoming a singer, maybe it's becoming a fireman or a doctor or a lawyer, or maybe it's becoming just an entrepreneur, maybe it's, being a coach or a speaker, maybe it's just being a great freaking father or husband or wife or sister or brother or son or daughter, right? Or maybe it's just spending time with your grandparents that may not be around much longer. And then now you sacrifice all these years, right, for something that's very fleeting that won't be around for you again in 2 years or 4 years or 5 years, and or the opportunity to do what you want to do is no longer there. I remember I had many opportunities myself to play basketball, right, in high school. I even had a guy, I think his name is Willie something, I forget. He sat me down one day, he says, dude, you need to take this basketball opportunity seriously because time is gonna fly and you won't get that opportunity again. And I was like, yeah, whatever. You don't play basketball, so whatever. But when you're really young like that, it seems like it's a bright time for you, but it can be a dark time because there's so many freaking unknowns. And unless you and I are humble enough to listen to someone who's been around for a while, who has more experience than us, who's seen more than us, we end up making a ton of mistakes by not listening to this person who could be like a grid to us, almost like a fortune teller, because they've already seen it and they know that you're not doing anything, so they can tell you what to do or at least how to avoid it. They may not be able to tell you exactly how to get there, but they can at least tell you what not to do. And so I didn't listen. To this day, I blew away a ton of opportunities. High school scholarships, college scholarships for playing ball. It doesn't mean that I had to go to the NBA, but maybe I could have traveled the world in my early 20s, right? Instead of waiting until I got in my 30s to travel, right? I could have traveled, I could have done this, I could have done that. There's a ton, I could have had all kinds of business opportunities. I think traveling by itself is an educational experience that you can't read in a book, that you can't learn in a class. You can't watch that many movies and still get the same experience as actually going to Europe, as actually going to South Africa, going to Portugal, going to Spain, right? You can't read about that. You can't watch enough movies about that. You actually have to do it yourself. You have to be there. You have to smell the air. You have to eat the food. You got to taste the food. You got to see how the people serve the food. You got to see how people interact, the languages they speak, how they live. There's so many different things, right? And even me telling you about it is not the same as you actually doing it. You really want to sacrifice what you really want to do or what you could do for a fleeting moment of entrepreneurship? Or do you want to sacrifice your entrepreneurship journey for a fleeting moment of working at a corporation, right? Whenever you want to determine whatever it is you're doing was worth it, you can look at the long term of it, which is the better thing. What will happen in a year? What will I be in 2 years, 3 years? Or you can just look at what has happened to someone else who went that route, right? Hope this helps. Like, subscribe. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Thanks for tuning in. Be good.